So, I was thinking about what video to make today, and as I'm pretty busy this week, I thought it'd be fun to cover a fairly short subject that I remember being something I was really interested in when looking into the Witcher lore ages ago. So for today's video, I simply want to discuss how Nilfgaard is ruled, as well as how power is delegated throughout the Empire, and the various ways that someone might become Emperor. I will say, before I properly get into this subject, that this is just going to be a basic video on how the Empire is run, so I'll discuss the various ruling positions briefly, as well as how power is delegated, but not say go into the Nilfgaardian Empire as a whole, so discuss each area, why they joined, etc. Just the basics of how it is run. To begin, let's discuss the position that is the key figurehead of the Empire of Nilfgaard, the Emperor. The Emperor of Nilfgaard is effectively a dictator, so has all the power. Therefore, they make all the major decisions involving the Empire. For example, who they invade next and who controls what lands. But not only that, the Emperor of Nilfgaard also acts as the head of the religion of Nilfgaard. This religion being the Great Sun. Bear in mind, the Great Sun is not believed in every area of the Nilfgaardian Empire, so therefore the Emperor is not the religious head of every area, but the Emperor is the overall ruler of all the areas in the Empire. And I'm sure if the Emperor wanted, they could just abolish whatever religions they disagree with, etc., as they have that much power. As of the beginning of The Witcher 3, the Emperor of Nilfgaard is Emir var-Emreis, the white flame dancing on the graves of his foes. Emir belongs to the long-ruling family, the House of var-Emreis. However, the position of Emperor is not always inherited. For example, the Emperor technically before Emir was the Usurper, a Nilfgaardian noble who killed Emir's father, Fergus var-Emreis, and seized the throne for himself. Under Emir's rule, I suppose he is no longer a previous Emperor, just a usurper, but he did technically still hold the position, and if he had managed to keep it, he would have obviously been the Emperor. It's the whole thing that history is written by the victors. So one way to be the Emperor is by force, be that via a coup or just an invasion. Another appears to be through marriage, as from what I understand, should Ciri become Empress, it is thought she marries Morvran, and technically he becomes the Emperor. It's a little bit confusing, but the reason many think this is because of comments made in The Witcher 3, but also because in the Witcher books, it is said that Morvran became Emperor after Emir. In the books, I imagine he was simply placed there by the existing Nilfgaardian nobles, as he was in a high position in the aristocracy, and in the books, there was an actual plot to just kill Emir and place him there instead. But from what I gather, he was meant to just sort of be the person that those who wanted to put him there could just sort of influence and control. So that leads me to believe that another way is basically just if the Emperor has no relatives, and you're the person the Nilfgaardian nobles believe is the best person for the job. And by Nilfgaardian nobles, I just mean the important families in the main city of Nilfgaard. I'm sure there are many other ways you can become Emperor, but for now, that's the basics of it. Moving on, the power delegated throughout the Nilfgaardian Empire is actually pretty dependent on how each kingdom or duchy or area entered the Nilfgaardian Empire. For example, Vicovaro, a vassal state of the Nilfgaardian Empire, joined willingly, although only out of fear, and therefore the nobles of that kingdom maintain their high status, at least in their own kingdom. But if you look at, say, a northern kingdom like Cintra, and see how Emir placed his own ruler in charge of that kingdom, and this was because Calanthe, the previous ruler, was attacked by Emir and she ultimately died. Both these cases can be seen throughout the Nilfgaardian Empire. I mean, in some cases, such as Dol Blathanna, new duchies or kingdoms can form when land is invaded and then be ruled by whoever the Emperor decides. Although Dol Blathanna then went under the control of Edirn, and then at the end of The Witcher 2, Edirn was taken over by Nilfgaard, so that whole situation is a little bit confusing. You could even talk about the Bloody Baron in The Witcher 3, who just went to the local ruler's fort after they fled from the coming Nilfgaardian armies. The Emperor of Nilfgaard allowed him to basically be the Baron, as he was willing to control the area and serve the Empire. So, effectively with Nilfgaard, you have the Emperor, then the main Nilfgaardian families, who each have their own lands, and have a lot of influence in the capital. Then you probably have the military military commanders, as of course the army is a big thing for Nilfgaard, and then I'd put the various lords, duchesses, and in a way petty kings below them. There are of course other roles seen throughout Nilfgaardian courts. For example, you might have a leader of the military intelligence, and although they are sort of on the same level as a commander, I'd say that they don't really possess as much power, as if you're a commander you effectively have control of an army, and should the emperor die, I'm sure the men would be more loyal to you than any Secret Service agent. I mean, officially I'd say they're about on the same level of the sort of pecking order, but I think it is very much sort of an opinionated thing as to which one is higher, as obviously Secret Service agents have skills that commanders don't, etc. There are also various important guilds within the Nilfgaardian Empire, such as the Guild of Merchants, and although they have a lot of power simply being what they are, I feel like it's a little bit more of a fluid position, as the guild has that power, not really the individuals within it. For example, a military commander, noble family, a king, or even Secret Service leader will have people loyal to them, but I don't feel like the leader of the Guild of Merchants has all that much loyalty. It feels quite sort of backstabby, and I get the impression most of the members are kind of selfish. So the guilds do have a key position in the Empire, but it's not as apparent as the others. They're sort of like banks in the real world. They are important and play a key position in economic growth, therefore they have a lot of influence, but they don't really rule anything physically tangible, like a kingdom, an army, or a people. They're sort of almost like a very important union. There are also mages, but from what I gather, they aren't really on the same level of importance as the northern mages, at least to the Emperor. For example, in the north, at least before certain events, every king would have a mage as a key advisor, but in Nilfgaard, the Emperor would have many mages around court, as well as just many general advisors. For example, I doubt every Nilfgaardian kingdom or duchy or anything else has a mage posted there. They just don't seem as widespread, perhaps because the Emperor doesn't want to give them that much power. However, I will say that it could be possible they have mages everywhere, it's just we don't really meet them in the books, nothing is described, and based on the fact that only a few Nilfgaardian sorceresses were even invited to the lodge's meetings, I'm going to assume there's actually not that many of them, or at least any that are in that important of a position. Finally, to end today's video, I feel like I should briefly go over something I did touch on earlier, and this is the Great Sun. So I have made a video on this religion, but effectively it's just the state religion of the Nilfgaardian Empire, although not all within the Nilfgaardian Empire openly worship it. For example, in Toussaint, it's not exactly widely worshipped. It's not so important for how Nilfgaard is ruled, it's more sort of on the cultural side. It's very key within the Empire, as I said, the Emperor is the head of the whole religion, but in regards to the extent to which it may control people, it's not exactly apparent. We just know it rose back to popularity once Emir reclaimed the Empire from the usurper. Anyway guys, that's it for today's video. I know it's been a little bit shorter than normal, but I feel like this is a subject many people may want to know more about, as in both the books and games. More so in the games, we never really get to explore this empire or the main city of Nilfgaard. So knowing how this very key, I suppose, faction is actually ran, is at least, I feel, pretty good for your overall immersion in this universe. I mean, we do get to see Toussaint, but it's such an isolated area if you look at the entire Nilfgaardian Empire, and in fact it's even said as much in the books. What I mean is we don't ever get to see like proper Nilfgaardian culture as it has existed for a long time. We see sort of touches of it throughout, you know, for example in Velen, Vizima's Palace, and a little bit in Toussaint, but that's sort of about it. We do see a little bit in The Witcher 2 as well, but yet again we don't actually see how the cities are properly run, etc. And I think for a future game, if we get to see this side of the Witcher universe, it would be very cool. But anyway, that's it for today's video, and I hope you've all enjoyed. Be sure to like today's video to let me know you've enjoyed it, and subscribe if you're new, as I make Witcher videos every week, and if you subscribe, you won't miss them. My question for this week is something that I'm actually pretty curious about. I want to know what you guys think about Nilfgaard on the whole. Maybe not knowing much about the lore, knowing a lot, or anywhere in between. I'm just curious as to what impressions you guys might have got from them, if you support them invading the Northern Kingdoms, if you think they should just leave them alone. I'm just pretty curious as to what people actually think think about the Nilfgaardian Empire, considering that it always seems as almost like the, I suppose, bad guy that are just invading all the time. I do want to see what you guys actually think. But anyway, that's it for today's video. Follow my Twitter, Twitch, and as always, a big thank you to the Patreon pledges. You guys are honestly amazing, and thank you so much. I really appreciate what you all do, and honestly, it's just so kind. I'm glad to put all of your names at the end of these videos. Anyway, that's it for today's video, guys, and I'll see you all in the next one. Have an awesome rest of the week.